Yo, what is up, Pokemon people? Now that I've been back here for another Monday video on Derium's Pokemon. So, today we are going to go over the top 10 pulls that you can get out of Cosmic Eclipse. So, how I came up with these 10 cards. Alright, so we took both playability and collectability, meshed the two together, and then also took into account how long it's going to survive as a collectible, how long it's going to survive as a playable card, and then combined all of those factors into one solid list of 10 cards that I think you should be looking out for when opening Cosmic Eclipse. With that being said, let's just jump right into it. Card number one, this is going to be Pikachu with the Nuzzle, the Full Art Secret Rare. So this card is mostly based on collectability. Even though it's very low in price right now, I think it will always maintain some sort of minimum price barrier of at least a few dollars. Also, at the same time, on the playable side, I know there's a Raichu that came out during this set that is also super playable, and this will 100% be the Pikachu that gets played with it, mostly for the Nuzzle attack. One, the Nuzzle attack is just really good, and two, there's a deck that actually focuses on Nuzzle. I believe it's a Pachirisu that has an ability that once during your turn, you can use the Pokemon ability to search for any Pokemon that has a Nuzzle attack, and you can grab it out of your deck, put it in your hand for free. On top of it, it's just like a really cute and amazing card. I mean, in my opinion, it's the cutest card from the entire set, and I believe I am not the only one who shares that opinion. Number 9 on this list is Tag Call Secret Rare. Of course, also the non-secret rare version is great, but of course the secret rare is the one you want to open the pack, right? So number 9, it is at number 9, slightly above the Pikachu, just because of how insanely playable this card is. Search your deck up to 2 tag team cards, which now we have tag team supporters that just recently came out in this set, as well as tag team Pokemon that have had several sets to really develop now. Reveal them, put them in your hand, and shuffle your deck. Alright, so this card is going to be one of the top cards in the entire meta for both standard and expanded. This one's really on the list mostly because of how competitive it is. Not so much on the collector side, but of course it is a secret rare. One of the best secret rares in the entire set. This is one of those cards that you want to pull. You probably want to get rid of in 2 years from now once it rotates. Maybe not. Maybe we'll see it have a really good deck in expanded. Of course, some of the top cards of all time in expanded were printed way back in the day. I mean, Arceus Ace in the Hole was from Primal Clash. That was 3-4 years ago. There's still some cards from the black and white era that are still played on a daily basis in expanded. So yeah, this is a card that's going to have a lot of longevity and a lot of competitive play seeing it. And also it is a secret rare, of which in a very large set is very hard to get your hands on. So there will be a lot of secret rares on this list just because of how big of a set it is. Alright, on to number 8. Alright, number 8, Professor Oak's setup. While it's not as good in the competitive section, I believe it's just good enough in the competitive section to combine with the collectability. Of course, Professor Oak is the Generation 1 Professor. Generation 1 is widely held as one of the most nostalgic sort of generations to make cards out of. Of course, Charizard, Pikachu, Gengar, all those cards, Blastoise, Venusaur, all those sort of generation nostalgic cards are always going to be worth some money at very least. And of course, this card, while also not also having this nostalgia to it, in standard, this would definitely be played in some non-GX deck, with it being a very good standard card combined with it having Generation 1 nostalgia. I would say this card is ranked at number 8 in the list. Alright, on to number 7. Alright, number 7 is Secret Rare Great Catcher. In my opinion, this card will 100% be one of those cards that will be one of the best cards in standard for a long time. Be one of the best cards in expanded for a long time. I know V cards are coming up, so it depends on how fast they phase out EXs and GXs being good and expanded. But with V cards coming out, this can't catch V cards, but it can catch basically every single relevant GX and EX, which is every single meta deck at the moment. The only meta deck it doesn't really do well against is Malamar, and even that meta deck isn't that super great at the moment. So I will say Great Catcher has enormous competitive potential for years and years to come, not only in the standard format, but also expanded. And once again, it's also one of those things that it's a secret rare, so it's going to have collector value, of course, just because it's such a massive set. I believe this is a 270 something card set, if not in the 260s for sure. So this is just a massive set. All secret rares are going to hold value, at least the ones that are somewhat playable. But yep, that's all I can say about number 7. Yes, 7. On to number 6. Number 6 on this list is, of course, Secret Rare Power Plant. Alright, so this is very similar to number 7. Shutting off abilities is one of the biggest things in the competitive format, especially for expanded. I believe 3 or 4 out of the top 4 decks this weekend, this past weekend at, I believe it was Richmond, Virginia. It was an expanded regionals, which keys you into how long this card is going to be able to survive as a playable and expensive card. All 4 of them, I believe, or 3 out of 4, played this card. This is a very powerful card in both the standard and expanded format as far as playability. And then also, so it's very good as a competitive card, but it also has a little bit of nostalgia to it. Power Plant was one of the key focal points in the game. It is where you get Zapdos. This is just definitely a card that is going to have a little bit of nostalgia, but a lot of competitive play for a very long time. This is a card I think will have value for at least 5 years. And again, it's a secret rare in a very large set. So I don't see this being easy to collect whatsoever or easy to pull out of your packs whatsoever. So this is definitely another card you want to look for in your packs. All right, we are at number 5 on this list, halfway through, and we're finally getting back around to the Pokemon. So, of course, with number 5 slot, we choose Blastoise and Piplup. Now, me personally, I don't know whether it's going to be the alternate art or if it's going to be the secret rare or hyper rare or rainbow rare or whatever you want to call it. But I believe this card has plenty of nostalgia to it, and it's just good enough in the competitive standard format to where this will be a highly sought after card. This is very similar to like the alternate art Magikarp and Warlord, which I believe is still a $15 card around that area. Even though it's lost all competitive viability, the whole concept is it's not viable right now, but it's also a $15 card. And I think the same concept with Magikarp Warlord also applies to this card, Blastoise and Piplup, and I believe it will be true for the alternate art and the Rainbow Rare, depending on whichever one collectors lean towards. Me personally, if I was a collector, I would like the alternate art. I think they look a lot nicer. But of course, the Rainbow Rares are the secret rares, so they are harder to get. There's less of them out there, and thus more collectability. They're more rare, thus they have more value, supply and demand. So that will do it for number 5. On to number 4. All right, number 5 on this list. This is another one of those combination between nostalgia and also competitive play cards. So this card has, in my opinion, almost endless potential. Search your deck for a Pokemon GX that evolves from one of your Pokemon. Put it onto that Pokemon. If you do, discard 2 cards and attach 2 energy from your deck to that Pokemon. I think this card has limitless competitive potential, and also it's red and blue. It's insane levels of nostalgia. Of course, going back to that Gen 1 logic again, most of the 99% of the nostalgic cards that are worth the most money, of course, like Charizard, Gengar, Pikachu, Blastoise, all of those cards that are holding the most value all have basis in the first generation of Pokemon. So this is another card that I think has enormous potential value and also has enormous collector value. So that will do it for number 4. On to number 3. Number 3 is Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia GX. This is one of, I believe, 3 at the moment, and I believe there are only 3 ever to be printed tag teams with 3 Pokemon on it. So, with that being said, I think collectability will be very high just because it's a tag team of 3. On top of that, it's another nostalgia card. It's Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia, which is known in the Pokemon lore as being the creation trio, i.e., basically the trio of Pokemon that created basically the Pokemon universe, if I recall correctly. So this has a enormous amount of nostalgia to it, of course, and then on top of that, this is probably going to be one of the most competitive cards. Honestly, it's Altered Creation is basically 30 more damage for the rest of the game, and whenever you take a knockout, you take an additional prize, no matter what type of Pokemon it is. So this card is going to have enormous competitive play potential, and also it has an enormous nostalgic potential. And also, just look at this art. This is one of the best arts I've ever seen on a card. And again, this is one of those that it's going to be like a rainbow rare or alternate art. It's kind of a toss up of what collectors want. Again, me personally as a collector, I lean more towards the alternate art. But you can go ahead and disagree with me in the comments if you disagree. But yeah, that'll be it for number 3. On to number 2. All right, number 2 is Reshiram and Zekrom GX. This is just the best art I've ever seen on a Pokemon card. Maybe there's a little bit of bias in this list, but the competitive potential on this card is limitless. By the way, this card is probably, I think, going to be the number 1 deck in expanded, in potentially standard. I think there's a lot more tools for it in expanded with double dragon energy, which is it's a energy card that's basically like DCE, double colorless energy, but it can only be attached to dragon Pokemon. But it counts as 2 basically rainbow or prism energies, if you want to call it that. And yeah, it can attack in 1 turn, and it can do up to 270 damage, which is literally 1 HKOing 99.9% of the cards in the meta. Again, I think the only card that doesn't 1 HKO is Magikarp and Wailord GX. So yeah, also at the same time, I think it's one of the very few cards that are going to be collector value, specifically because it has a trainer and 2 very nostalgic Pokemon on the art. So having N right there in the center, it just looks so amazing and magnificent. And honestly, the Rainbow Rare as well, it has that new Rainbow Rare style that has been seen only in this set. Honestly, if they had done Rainbow Rares like this since the beginning of Sun and Moon, I think people would have liked it like 100 times more. Personally, I wasn't a big fan of Rainbow Rares. Of course, they are like the secret rare slots, so they're more expensive, more harder to find, more rare to pull. So they're gonna always have the higher collective value. But in my opinion, if I was playing cards, I definitely want this art more. But regardless of that, both of these arts are very highly collectible. Nostalgia is there with the 2 Pokemon. The art is there with the N front and center, just looking amazing. And of course, the playable value is 100% there all the way. On to number 1, and I think you guys know what it is. And number 1, of course, is Charizard. Because Charizard